Honourable members, I now give the floor to the Honourable Prime Minister to give his right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me begin by again thanking His Excellency the President for his speech opening this session of Parliament. All throughout the week, we have seen how the principles and values set out in his vision for Fiji have served as a guiding force in our deliberations, and at least on this side of the House, have set our high standards of conduct that we have strived to meet. Those standards, Madam Speaker, we as elected representatives be worthy in public life of the ordinary men and women who have put us here, should always be at the forefront of our minds and at the center of every decision that we make, most especially in this Parliament. Because our being here can never be seen as an opportunity to serve ourselves. I hope people are listening. But rather it is an honor bestowed upon us to serve our people. Honorable Biman Prasad mentioned the passing away of Turanga Rokutimbau, Ratu Madraiwiwi, and I, on behalf of the government and FijiFirst party, also offer our condolences in the passing of this great man, a learned man, Madam Speaker. A lot of people don't know that he was the Vice President after the events of 2000, and he tried very hard to work a way out between me and as a commander of the military and the Prime Minister then, Laisene Angarase, in the impasse that was in place then. But unfortunate for us, the former Prime Minister couldn't commit himself to the two issues, which would, I and Ratu believe, would bring about racial division and the loss of economy. The rest, of course, Madam Speaker, is history. But as I say farewell to this great man, I want to, Madam Speaker, quote for some of the write-ups about Ratu, and it would be good for everyone to listen, especially the other side of the House. Madam Speaker, at an education workshop in Suva, Ratu said it was a mistake to view indigenous rights as superior to human rights in general. And this is what we've been talking about, Madam Speaker. And I wish the Honorable Nikonowaikula and Honorable Ngabok, I can't see the name there, be present today to listen to this. But it's very fortunate that we have the Honorable Leader of the Opposition here with us. Thank you, Madam. He said, Ratu said, it was a mistake to view indigenous rights as superior to human rights in general. He said that the ILO Convention 169 that everybody's been quoting, the convention concerning indigenous and tribal peoples and in independent countries, clearly stated that indigenous rights were not separate from human rights and could not be asserted at the expense. Exactly what we've been trying to tell everyone. Articles referring to a self-contained system of governance for indigenous peoples were, he said, for traditional and cultural matters and did not legitimize or authorize indigenous supremacy. Ratu also said, or he rejected arguments by some politicians that when the United Kingdom granted independence to Fiji in 1970, they should have handed power back to the chiefs, calling this position legally untenable. Ratu opposed calls for the establishment of a Christian state in Fiji, saying that it would hinder a correct relationship between the overwhelmingly Christian Itaukei and mainly Hindu and Muslim Indo-Fijian community. He expressed concern that the growth of newer fundamentalist denominations at the expense of the long dominant Methodist Church evoked a less tolerant dimension to the work of some Christian churches. Exactly our stand on this side of the House, Madam Speaker. Ratu Joni once called on his fellow chiefs to maximize the effectiveness of income generated through tourist facilities built on native-owned land. No spoon feeding here, Madam Speaker. But he goes on to talk about the National Federation Party. And he said in 2014, before the general election, where I understand he was invited to speak at the National Federation Party Congress, Ratu Joni told the National Federation Party, the message must be the NFP's willingness to embrace a more inclusive and non-racial type of politics that is more substantial than merely having an itoke of renown as president of the party. That's from a great man, Madam Speaker, and I would just like to pass on some of his message across to the members of this House. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, it was if members of the opposition in the last couple of days chose to ignore entirely the noble aspirations outlined by His Excellency the President in his speech. Unfortunately, they choose not to heed his words to promote unity, but rather fear and division. They could not keep their comments focused on the issues that matter to the Fijian people, on the delivery of essential services and the development of our infrastructure. And they, most unfortunately, could not place the interests of the Fijian people ahead of their own political ambition. While I had hoped that this session might be an opportunity to improve the relationship between the government and the opposition, and while I wish that we could depend on the opposition to take a serious and appropriate approach to governing, we saw clearly during this first sitting in dealing with the racist and derogatory outbursts from the opposition ranks that this is simply not the case. The opposition's outbursts have been offensive on the basis of gender and then ethnicity, and now religion. And as we endured the latest, I could only think of the words of Abdul Kalam, the former President of India. He said, Madam Speaker, I quote, "For great men, religion is a way of making friends. Small people make religion a fighting tool." Let me say that again, Madam Speaker. I want people to hear and try to understand. For great men, religion is a way of making friends. For small people, make religion a fighting tool. As I said yesterday, as a legislative body, we had to take firm action to sanction the kinds of statements that we have been hearing in this House, or we risk becoming accustomed to them and then we risk losing our civility together. But what was most concerning, Madam Speaker, was that as we sought to confront this blatant demonstration of prejudice, the NFP once again chose the path of least resistance. It was truly sad witnessing the mental acrobatics on display as they attempted to justify their confounding allegiance with Sodelpo's leadership. I could not believe that Honorable Biman Prasad could completely ignore what happened to our country in 2000, what happened to our country in 1987, and even earlier. That was the result of the exact same attitudes articulated by Honorable Tigada. Instead, he attempted to paint a rosy picture with his fellow bedmates. He chose to pretend our history of racial vilification and violence never existed. And let me assure him the traditional support base of the NFP is watching. Those who recall the noble legacy those who recall the noble legacy of the NFP are watching. And they must know that the NFP have, again, let them down. He was yesterday, Madam Speaker, claiming that we are always on the high moral ground. Madam Speaker, this side of the House and that side of the House, we have a vision, which I think that side of the House lack. And a vision to take Fiji forward, to get rid of all the racist comments that have been the cause of the events of 2087. That is the vision that we have here. But if he wants to talk about lack of vision, maybe he should have a look at the people around him. And it was really interesting to see his fellow mate, Honorable Prem Singh, talk about ethics. Thank you, Honorable Prem Singh. Madam Speaker, another deeply troubling aspect on the part of the opposition has been the disregard for the loyalty and patriotism that His Excellency so eloquently called for his opening address. We may all come from different political parties. We may have come from vastly different political perspectives. But there are certain things, certain principles that we must share. Certain actions and statements must remain taboo in our political discourse. For example, you don't run down your country for personal gains. You don't take sides with unscrupulous companies or other groups seeking to undermine Fiji's progress, and then use them as tools to do the same. You don't seek to further our own ego and engage in short-term political point scoring at the expense of undermining the confidence in the country and of the Fijian people. These are lines that elected officials simply should never cross. We are all Fijians in this House, and we try very hard to convince Honorable Biman Prasad. We are all Fijians in this House, and we all need to be patriotic. I love at one stage that they had the flags. They had the flags like us, Madam Speaker, but they seem to disappear one by one. We all need to remember that it is for the betterment of our nation that we are privileged to even sit here. That is the level of commitment that is expected. That is the duty we all owe our people. So, Madam Speaker, imagine my disappointment when the old Sodelpa reared his old ugly head in the form of the intemperate and truly ignorant ramblings of Honorable Salotero Rondo, who's not here. I thought it was another walkout by the opposition. But talking about patriotism, Madam Speaker, this is patriotism. Look at the number of, and when I look across the room, I thought this was another walkout. There's really no respect for the House and for our little children watching us from the gallery. I imagine many Fijians must have scratched their heads, Madam Speaker, and asked themselves if she had perhaps been possessed by demons or had fallen on her head. For surely no honorable member of this House would cite a supermarket conversation as evidence that the judiciary is not independent. A serious legislator would surely gather facts before spouting such nonsense. Madam Speaker, I need not defend the independence of the judiciary because it does so on its own every day, by its action. The officers of our courts guard their independence jealously. The judges, the magistrates, everyone. And yesterday, Madam Speaker, she even has the gall to talk about the ministerial reshuffle on this side of the House. I think she should talk more of that side of the House. And there's a lot of separation in powers across the room. If she spent more time thinking about what she's going to say in public here than dressing up for the camera, I think she would make a good parliamentarian. Madam Speaker, I need not defend our Constitution or democracy against the ridiculous charges, because it is clear that the opposition have a different vision of democracy. One where some people are treated more favorably than others and everyone else searches for the crumbs that fall from the table. This attitude, Madam Speaker, is the same one of past governments that crippled Fiji and our development for far too long. And it is an attitude that must never again come to pass. Madam Speaker, American President Ronald Reagan once famously said in refuting an opponent's charges, facts are stubborn things. Indeed, they are so stubborn that they have completely eluded Honorable Randrondo's incomprehensible imagination. She went on to reveal her ignorance of contractual disputes and the rule of law, defending people who have violated the terms of the agreements with government entities and who we have on strong authority threatened this country. It is indeed the facts that seem to routinely be the undoing of this opposition. How many times have we witnessed the spectacle of opposition members yelling and screaming across the aisles whenever this side of the House bring actual facts to the table? Do you know why they make such a scene? Because to them, the facts are too much to digest. They prefer their own fantasies. In fact, yesterday, Honorable Mulitabo had quoted from the Facebook and the blog pages. This is no place for Facebook and blog pages. This is the Parliament. Here, you talk on facts, you talk on visions, not on Facebook and blog sites. And we are all too happy to splash the cold water of reality in their faces from time to time. Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker. I was just reflecting on the Prime Minister's statement about Honorable Randondro, that she was sitting, the reference that she was sitting to the camera. I think it's a sexist comment and the Prime Minister should withdraw that.
Thank you.
I cannot take that point of order because Honorable Salatin Randondro is not here to support that.
She's not here, going to look for her and bring her here. Madam Speaker, this Parliament must represent the people, and the fact is, despite the fantasies peddled by the opposition, Fiji has never been more united than it is today. We are united because of our Constitution. On that note, Madam Speaker, I would suggest that Honorable Sudhakar give a lesson on the Constitution to our opposition members, especially Honorable Biman Prasad. So you can tell them the difference between the 97 Constitution that they've been harping about and the 2013 Constitution. Thank you. We are united because of my FijiFirst party, Madam Speaker. We are united because we came together as a people in the face of a tragedy. Tropical Cyclone Winston. We are united because we came together in the pride and sheer exhilaration of our gold medal Olympic win in sevens rugby. And we are united because we are more equal than ever before. Biman Prasad, listen to that. And in this sense, the people are leading us and showing us the way. Equality requires us to look at our own personal lives. Honorable Prem Singh, to look at our family life and the communities we live in, to look at our political parties and take proper action, not just recite the words. Equality is not an incantation, Madam Speaker, to be intoned at convenient times. It is a way of being a civic vocation that must be taught, shared, believed, and lived. And we must be patriotic to this nation. The opposition once came with black ribbons, Madam Speaker, and the Honorable Leader of the Opposition had an explanation in the papers. But when I asked the Honorable Tinamosi why was he wearing black ribbon, he said his dog died. There must be a lot of dogs that died. The opposition, Madam Speaker, continuously raises the issue of division and raises issues that are irrelevant in an attempt to create division. We don't need to create division where it does not exist. Instead, we should be seeking to find a commonality between us and lead by example in promoting equality where differences do exist. This requires strong, decisive, and principled leadership, which I think is lacking on that side of the House, Madam Speaker. The leadership that I and my government are delivering. Sowing fear and distrust has no place in a society based on equality, simply because equality requires respect and a will to understand and care for each other. We need tangible equality. A bit too late to come in and listen to my speech. We need tangible equality through non-discrimination. In the same way, Madam Speaker, we can't just tick the boxes of justice and proclaim our society just. We need substantive justice. Justice for the poor, for the marginalized, for those in rural and maritime areas, for women, for our children sitting out there in the gallery, the elderly and the disabled. That is the mission we must keep before us. And I thank the Honorable Nandrono for coming in now, but she's sitting behind Honorable Vande's name tag. Can you just move to the, thank you. Because yesterday, Honorable Nandrono had asked, what did that little girl gain from the singing? Was there just a lot of claps? If she was there, she would have seen that the little girl read from the Braille of our Constitution. The first time ever, Madam Speaker, in this Fiji, that we have a Braille version of the Constitution. But she doesn't understand that. You see, Madam Speaker, she does not understand why we did that. She has little understanding of anything. The Braille version of the Constitution is what this government is trying to tell the disabled, that we are with you and you are with us. We will take you along. That's the thanks we give to that little girl. The opposition takes any small thing that happens which they don't like. Things like adhering to rules and processes they don't like. Newspaper articles, positive events in our country, or actual facts. They claim that there is no democracy. They claim that there is no rule of law. Madam Speaker, this is not leadership. This is not patriotism. Such attitude shows their ignorance and their incompetence to be the alternative government. Of course, not everyone in this country has clean drinking water yet. Not every place has good roads yet. But under my government, as His Excellency said, which they didn't hear properly, we have never had such a focus on building up our infrastructure and increasing access to essential services. And under my government, we do have the highest rate of connectivity and the highest rate of infrastructure development ever achieved in such a short period of time. And if past governments had done their job, we would not have to play so much catch-up. Every Fijian knows that the level of infrastructure, the number of people connecting to electricity and other essential services has never been higher under any other government. And that is because we have never had such a drive for justice, equality, and service delivery. Madam Speaker, there is so much to be done in Fiji. We are a developing country that faces many challenges, and this government is confronting those challenges on a broad front. The path ahead is clear. We are moving steadily towards better health care, better education, and better infrastructure. We cannot recreate, Madam Speaker, or even correct the shortcomings in all sectors overnight, and we can always point to gaps or to areas that can improve. But choices must be made and limited resources must be applied. And the decisions are not always easy. But if we keep before us the ideals of justice and equality that we've talked about in the last week, and if we discuss our needs and debate our priorities with respect, civility, and relevant and rational arguments, the decisions will build on each other, year after year, until we have the essential services and infrastructures that all Fijians deserve. Madam Speaker, as the government makes decisions and establishes priorities, we keep before us always the need to bring the marginalized closer to the center of national life. That has been at the heart of the education reforms and the health reforms His Excellency referred to. But of course, some people weren't here to listen to that. Providing equal access to education and relieving hard-working parents of the cost of schooling and making medicines more accessible to the people who can least afford them, which the other side call freebies. It is at the heart of our unrelenting commitment to support small and medium-sized businesses, and particularly micro businesses. These programs are a way for my government to reassure the people that we believe in them and that we will help them find the means to improve the standard of living, create new wealth for themselves and their families, and live fulfilling lives. Madam Speaker, all Fijians must have the chance to participate in the economy in a meaningful way. And if the economy rewards them for their hard work, if it encourages them to take charge of their lives, if it shows them that they can get a better life for their children, and if it encourages them to have big dreams, then their participation will be meaningful. Whether people start their own businesses, work the land, or choose to work for salary or wages, they must believe that the economy works for them, that the playing field is level, that laws protect them, and that they can sustain their livelihoods for the long term. On that note, Madam Speaker, on that note, Honorable Biman Prasad has talked about his knowledge of the sugar industry. He's talked about trying to get $90 a ton for sugar. You know why, Madam Speaker? Because $90 a ton will work out for the number of votes that he's going to get. The biggest amount of money ever earned by a cane farmer in Fiji's history, Madam Speaker, per ton is about $87. He's talking about $90 a ton. $87, Madam Speaker, a ton. That's the highest amount of money a cane farmer has ever received from his sugar taking. That was 2 years ago, Madam Speaker, under my leadership. He's talking as if he knows the sugar industry. What little knowledge he has of the sugar industry, Madam Speaker, what little knowledge he has of the sugar industry is in my little pocket here. He has forgotten that $80 million was brought over from India by past governments, 75% of which, $80 million worth of milling equipment, 75% of which didn't work. We had to throw them over the sea. He hasn't told everyone that a lot of people have taken advantage of the scholarships that have now, that is now available to them, and they've left farming. But he hasn't told anyone that people like Honorable Voreqe went around in 1999, getting back, telling the chiefs to take back their land because of the politics in those days. The same politics that removed Mahendra Chaudhary from office. an Indo-Fijian. But he does, yes, yes, and I know. That's why I'm telling you. That's a little knowledge you don't know about. You should ask him, because he was responsible for going out into the rural areas, in the villages, and telling the chiefs to take back their land. That was part of the sugar demise. He hasn't told people that. As I said, Madam Speaker, what little knowledge he has of the sugar industry is in my little pocket. Government is not only committed to ensuring good working terms and conditions, but also to making sure that the new jobs are created and that the jobs that people have today can be sustained over the long term. And if you do that, we are, Madam Speaker, we will create the new jobs in the modern economy that we will keep our young, talented, ambitious people in Fiji. Our young people, like those sitting out there, need opportunities. And it is government's job to create an environment through laws, sound economic policies, and the creation of investor confidence that will give them these opportunities. Stability, Madam Speaker, whether they want to get a job or become entrepreneurs who create jobs. I was truly moved when His Excellency mentioned what a privilege it was to hear Naomi Lawakita from the High School for the Blind read out the rights of the disabled from the Braille version of the Constitution on Constitution Day. His Excellency was proud of Naomi, but also proud of his country, because he knew that her participation was not just a gesture. It was a milestone on Fiji's road to equality, justice, and inclusion. That's for you. Honorable Nondono. Madam Speaker, it is that same commitment to inclusion that was, again, so clearly lacking from the opposition throughout this sitting. Very embarrassing. Members on that side of the House made it very clear that they do not believe they owe their duty to all of the Fijian people, but rather to their own select provincial interests. In true Sodel fashion, they have catered to a favored few rather than address the interests and welfare of all Fijians that we do on this side of the House and that side of the House. From Honorable Noekula, you will have heard in the last couple of days, we heard only of the Kaunrore. Honorable Kilraki, we only heard of Naita City. Honorable Ngawoka, we only heard of Nandronga. And from Honorable Lewere, we heard only of Serua. You forgot about Telewa. From that side of the House, we again heard only narrow-minded, selective leadership. And Madam Speaker, I hesitate to call it leadership at all. I want to make something very clear. As Prime Minister, I stand for the interest of every Fijian, and so as members of my party, no matter where they are in Fiji, who they are, what religion they follow, or what province they come from. We are for every Fijian. I've said this many times, that who you are or where you reside makes you no less a part of this country or no less deserving of the services and infrastructure that drive economic advancement. My government understands that our success hinges on involving as many of us in our economy as possible. We understand that our responsibility extends beyond any one area, and that is the responsibility that we embrace and we will continue to meet. Madam Speaker, in serving all of our people, we will take a serious and sober approach to the legislative agenda that His Excellency outlined for us. It is an ambitious agenda because we have so many laws and regulations that need updating to meet the country's current and future needs. But we also know that it is not always possible to satisfy everyone. We want to be sure that these laws are discussed in a constructive spirit, not in the atmosphere of a bazaar or a boxing ring. Elections necessarily are about differences, but governing is about reason and compromise. And most importantly, it is about keeping the common good of all Fijians uppermost in our minds. We experienced in Fiji a great national low and a great national high within the 6 months, Madam Speaker. The low, of course, was Winston. The high, of course, was our great Olympic rugby victory. That victory would have been a cause for celebration in any year. But this year, this terrible year of Winston, it lifted us all and gave us greater hope and confidence. That is where we are now. There is a spirit of confidence and hope in the country, even in the face of significant work that still needs to be done to recover and return the country to normal, to get people back on their feet and back their lives. His Excellency reminded us that we are facing a challenge of unprecedented scale and a shortage of materials needed to rebuild, which a lot of people on that side of the house do not seem to understand. This is our highest priority and will remain our highest priority, even while we continue to do the things that governments must do to keep the country moving. Our friends are still with us, and of course our Olympic spirit is still driving us. I urge my colleagues in this Parliament to join with me as we confront all the challenges His Excellency pointed out as we enact new legislation, set our priorities, oversee the delivery of critical services, and recover from Winston. I ask that we keep before us the principles of equality, of justice and patriotism, and I ask especially that we do so by promoting the interest of all Fijians. Madam Speaker, I thank His Excellency the President for his most gracious speech, and we look forward to his continuing leadership as the head of our state. And God bless you all.